Hi, and welcome again to the pain and pleasure of living a life on purpose. Today I have a beautiful lady with me, Edith Horvath. No, not Horvath at all, Horvath, that's it. A Hungarian lady that I had the pleasure of meeting probably about 3 weeks ago, may even be more now. We went to Tanya McQueen's Global Spirits Film U workshop, and I met Edith there along with other people, but her background really intrigued me. And I'll just tell you one thing about the challenge that we had to face to begin with, where we were all asked to record ourselves on our phone singing a song, which really dumped us in the deep end, didn't it, Edith?
Yes, definitely. Especially I'm not a very good singer.
Likewise, and it's amazing. But by the end of the song, it's amazing how you kind of let yourself go, eh?
Yeah, especially that, you were hoping nobody will listen.
Yeah, well, I actually concluded that my role in life is not to be a singer. There's so plenty of people.
Same here.
Fantastic. So, Edith, can you tell us a bit more about the extent of your work?
Well, you threw the ball to me, didn't you?
I certainly did. You were thinking I was going to introduce you to various things, so there you go.
Well, I have a number of hats.
Yeah.
I'm a psychologist, and I work as an organizational psychologist.
What does that involve?
I work in various organizations helping at different levels of issues, individual, group, and systemic organizational wide. As well as I am a sex therapist.
Right.
So I work with individuals, couples. I train professionals around intimacy and sexuality. For example, nurses, doctors, OTs, etc. Because most of these professionals don't have much training in sexuality.
Wow. Why would you need training in sexuality to be a nurse?
Say it again, please.
How would it help?
A number of treatments, a number of medications have quite extensive effect on people's sexuality. And when you're unwell, you would like to know the journey through the treatment and the journey of the illness, because sometimes certain conditions change one's sexual drive, and that could be diminishing it or increasing it. And if you don't know as a person, you might be extremely surprised around this. Or if your family doesn't know this, they don't know what to do or how to approach these things. So that's why I feel that they do need some skills to learn around this, as well as some nurses are very good at the knowledge, so they have it in my mind,
yeah,
but they have difficulty verbalizing.
Right.
Because of their upbringing, their family, their religious background, whatever it is, they're not used to talking about these issues. So in a workshop environment, I help to make sure that they are comfortable with the words they use.
Yeah.
But it's an agreed language, so clients, patients, customers would understand what they're talking about. Because if you don't ask these questions, you don't know.
You're in the dark, and you think there's something wrong with you, but actually it's part of the process, and an understanding helps your recovery as well. And the communication, when you're talking about sexuality, it's quite a taboo subject. But really, particularly for nurses and doctors and things, it's a bodily function. And for me, it's about who we are as people, and it's about our energy and what is affecting our energy and what we can do. Another thing I think that's really fascinating is how, particularly for the older women, I'm sort of thinking of my age groupish, is how andropause and menopause are affected, the whole body is affected because our hormones go up and down, and the effects that it has then. And that's really, I think, particularly for men, that it's not even spoken about.
Even for women, it's sort of hidden, and most women, unless they have very close, intimate friends, it's something what most of us not taught to disclose, or if you disclose, some people feel that, oh, you know, too much information, blah, blah, blah. And the other side of it is that it is so varied how aging would affect individuals, both men, women, because some start perimenopause in their late 30s, early 40s.
I do, yeah.
Others don't feel any effect at all. They just stop having their period and that's it. So this is for women. For men, you know, they start softening, you know, their muscles not as strong. They start feeling emotions a little bit more. So there are various different effects, both physically and emotionally, as we age. But most of us never learn about these things. So as a sex therapist, when I talk with people around what's happening to them, and they normally come with a problem, with an issue, then they make the problem a lot bigger sometimes than what it is. And when we put the environment and when we put the reality around it and the normality around it, people sort of don't feel that they are on their own. They don't feel that it's only happening to them. And it's much easier then to find solutions, and real solutions, which would resolve whatever their problems were.
Absolutely. And it's about identifying that pain before it snowballs into something. So how did you get into the world of sexual psychology? I'm intrigued.
Sure. Well, I'm a psychologist and I specialized into organizational psychology. And of course, organizations are full of sexual innuendos and behaviors, either appropriate or not appropriate. Yeah. And I mean, affairs are all over the place in workplaces. Some workplaces have stories around catching people in the act in the lunchroom and all sorts of things. So I always had that influence, I guess, in my work.
Yeah.
Or you cannot leave your sexual being at home or outside of your workplace.
It's a part of us, and I think that's one of the things that I would like to bring out in this. It's a normal part of us. We are actually sensual beings, and accepting that. And in the corporate world, it's changing because it's softening, and they're beginning to see the value in creating a balance and things. But for years and throughout the industrial age, it's been very led by males and power, and I guess all that comes into the work that you do as well.
Yeah, there are two sides of that, Philippa, because especially in the corporate world, especially in that higher echelon of management, CEOs, directors, the majority are males still. And even the females need to align with the male requirements. So, and interestingly, the requirement is, from a sexuality point of view, that you do go out at night, you do socialize, you do drink quite a bit, and to a certain extent, and this is where women are still pushed out, they do go to sex workers, sex clubs, etc. And it doesn't go very well with mixing the male and the female colleagues together. So I mean, I work in the arena of sex addiction or out of control sexual behavior, we prefer calling, but that's a little bit longer and people have difficulty to understand what that is. And again, the majority of people with these issues are male. And of course, it is based on that macho, over-sexualized male picture. There are some females in this arena, but not as many, definitely, as men.
So how did you transition? You obviously saw it, but how do you actually, you're obviously not advising people that they need help with their sexuality within an organizational aspect, but how do you transition, or how do people see their problems in themselves and actually put their hand up? Because I guess a lot of people kind of hide these things as to how it gets in the way of their lives.
Well, there are two answers to that. One is how I transitioned from being purely an organizational psychologist to work as a sex therapist as well. I had a number of issues in certain organizations where I had to deal with issues around sexuality. Right. Either accusations of sexual misconduct or affairs, etc., etc. And I had to follow a process, and the process included, of course, briefing and debriefing and investigating. And what I was surprised and amazed how differently people viewed exactly the same situation.
Right.
And I got fascinated with that, and then I thought, oh, I want to work more in this area. So I went back to university and did a sex therapy postgraduate course, and yeah, just working with individuals. Most of the time, people find me through people who I worked with.
Right.
Or I work, for example, in specific areas. I work with people who had breast cancer or prostate cancer.
Right.
And through their treatment, a number of counselors, a number of therapists know that I specialize in this area, so they refer them to me, because I really believe that through their cancer journey and recovery, it's very, very important to feel that they are still a sexual being, a man, a woman, somebody who's got those sensual parts to their lives. Mm-hmm. That's an enormous part of completing their recovery or feeling healthy in certain parts of their lives while they are getting treatment or struggling with health problems.
Because for me, it kind of, I'm thinking like maybe of a hysterectomy. I have had friends who've had hysterectomies, and also, you know, having gone through menopause, and it's like you start to question yourself as a whole person. And who am I now, because I don't have those bits, and it really all goes back to loving ourselves and recognizing how we are already whole. They are just physical bits of the body, and it's just they're functioning different, and getting people to see ourselves from a different perspective, which goes back to what you were saying before about you found it intriguing how so many people had different perspectives on one incident that happened. Hey, what are the big, can you align what I'm saying with any pains that people, is there a theme that people suffer from in not feeling whole?
It's very individual, and what I find that most people have, oh, sorry.
Don't worry.
They didn't like me that much.
Can't be that important.
No, exactly. Sorry about that. So what was the question again? Sorry, that threw me.
About feeling whole, and you're saying it's different for people.
Yeah, for some people it's really important how they look.
Yep.
Like I've got women who would not leave the house without their full makeup on.
Mm-hmm.
Others, especially women who had breast reconstruction after surgery, really important to feel sensation again in their breasts, and how they could do that, or no pain. For others, it's really important that their family surround them, and that loving feeling, that settled feeling is there. There is some difference between men and women, but it's not as great as some people, especially in the popular media, try to make it out.
Right.
Yeah, men function differently sexually than women, but both men and women want to feel closeness, want to have that emotional connection and way of being acknowledged and being loved, and that's universal. That doesn't matter who you ask. That is really, really important. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there are differences, but the similarities are more than people would think. And the other thing I want to say about this is, people say, oh, how are women, or how are men, or how are older men or younger men or whatever think about this or do this. I always sort of say, well, who do you want to know how they work or what they want? Do you want your partner or your lover? Ask them, because knowing how, on average, the statistics say that men or women or young or whatever do, that potentially does not matter if your mate is not like them. So that's what probably the most focus in my work is really allow and work through how an individual can talk openly and discuss openly these issues with the appropriate person.
Yeah. And it's really our unique needs. I mean, at the bottom line, male or female, we are all humans, but we have different needs. And it's, for me, from what you're saying, part of it, it's all about self-love, isn't it? And discovering what we need in ourselves. And I think, as counselors, therapists, mentors, facilitators, we all do the same job, but on a completely different, we have a different platform and a different speciality and so on and so forth. But I think
focus, yes.
The nuts and bolts of it is about creating that relationship with ourselves and understanding our own needs and saying, well, I don't really need to compare myself to Joe Bloggs, because I'm not Joe Bloggs. I'm this special person. I have these attributes. I've had this pain in my life and it's causing me pain, and I need someone to help me understand, put it in perspective for me, and so that I know how to nurture this thing. And it's really about nurturing ourselves, isn't it?
Yes, and understanding our own needs first, because if you don't know how you enjoy your body, how you enjoy to be pleasured, you won't be able to ask for what you want and what you need from another person. So I totally agree with you. We need to learn more about ourselves first before we could relate that to another person.
Absolutely. I mean, it's ironic that the name of my interview series is like the pain and pleasure of living a life on purpose. And in order to find pleasure, we need to see what we need from what that pain is teaching us, because it's about getting in touch with ourselves again, isn't it? Really, yeah.
Yeah, and in my own view that pain doesn't necessarily mean painful. It could be just a lack of pleasure or not enough pleasure or the wrong type of pleasure, because our way of perceiving and wanting pleasure changes. And especially for women, we have the monthly cycle, and what we would want at the beginning of a cycle, in the middle of cycle, or when you're just about to get your period, is very different. And if somebody says, oh, have you a PMT? That's probably not the best thing to ask a woman, even if she's got PMT.
Yes, absolutely. Warning sign, warnings. I love the fact that you say pain doesn't necessarily need to be painful. It's discomfort of various levels, and that discomfort is your body talking to you,
or just a longing, or just an emptiness, what you want to fill with something positive, something pleasurable. And that could be, buying yourself a bunch of flowers.
Yeah.
Or, it can be anything. Just you need to be careful if it's chocolate or biscuits, not overdo it.
Yeah, because I have a very special exercise when you're talking about the sensual thing and the pleasure side of things, is how to energize yourself. And because of our five senses, it's actually an exercise to help people become aware of what they love the look of, the sound of, the taste of, the touch of, and the smell of. And in that is actually to include it in your everyday life. And looking at the exercise, when you've done it for yourself, you can actually take a step back and say, holy crap, I've got none in that life. In my life, there's no wonder, I just need to sort of introduce stuff. And it is an awareness. And I think that's the purpose of both our roles.
Yeah.
So what kind of pain have, I see you're Hungarian. How long have you lived in New Zealand?
26 years.
Oh, right. All right. And so now that you're 27, so you've... So how did you, what painful journey have you been through to get to where you are now?
Well, there are those sort of big markers, you get married, you divorce, you try to find the partner who you want to choose, finding the beautiful person who I am with. Raising a child, it's got its painful parts. Majority are beautiful though.
And especially in hindsight, how old are your children?
I've got a 25-year-old and a 19-year-old.
Yeah. So I've got a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old. And the teens are different. Boys and girls are different. But now it's so rewarding when you look back of all those painful things, because there's no textbook, and you see the beautiful people and you walk alongside them in their journey. So there's absolutely nothing in my life that I've come across that is quite so beautiful.
True.
And when you're saying with, I found that my own children have helped me relate to myself, because particularly boys, my son's really good at pointing the obvious out and saying, when you're being a hypocrite. Why don't you try doing what you're saying, Mum, sort of thing. And I've been through a couple of divorces myself as well. The first one was because he was abusive, and the second one was just kind of moved in different directions. But looking at it now, it's about the relationship that I had with myself. Yes.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess professionally, learning what I don't know and keep that exploration and being open to new ideas and being open to new ways of looking at the same things or new things. Because when I started practicing, the internet wasn't, we haven't even thought about that, you know, somebody could be addicted to the internet, or the internet can have long-lasting negative effects on the brain, on individuals' behavior, etc., etc. So things change, and that is on one hand challenging. On the other hand, it's exciting because it's never the same. It's never the same issue, never the same individual in my work. So, and I love people. I love working alongside them and exploring their inner strength and assisting that to gain whatever they need to gain to make the next step.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think the more you know, the more you realize that you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you say, it is that being open side of things. So how did you go from Hungary to New Zealand to doing what you're doing? Because you're also a yoga teacher as well, aren't you?
Yes, I teach yoga, which really helps me to keep myself zen and balanced, because I'm a Taurian, and I'm a redhead originally, so I'm an Hungarian, of course, so very fiery. But so yoga helped me both physically and spiritually and mentally to keep on a more even keel than probably before.
So how long have you been doing yoga?
Pardon?
How long have you been doing yoga?
Oh, I started to do yoga when I was 11 years old.
Wow.
And then sort of, you know, waxed and waned a little bit. And around 6 years ago, I trained to be a teacher, and I've been teaching since. So that's a part of my life which sometimes overlaps with my psychology practice. Mm-hmm. I do help people if they are open to more physical breathing, mindfulness, meditative practices, depending on what their issues are. For some people it's very useful, for others I wouldn't even introduce it because it's just not relevant for them. But
I've always found that yoga, it's breathing, because at the end of the day that's what we all do, and being mindful of the breath and being grateful for it, and just being consciously aware of it, it brings in it's relaxing, and I think that's the most important thing. It actually takes you out of the zone, like you're saying. It's so much chop busyness, and it helps to take you out of the zone, doesn't it?
For sure. And the majority of individuals I work with do have some stress, anxiety underlying whatever the issues are. And even in organizations, the perception of that busyness, that I need to achieve all these sort of things, don't allow them to breathe. Therefore, they just keep elevating in their being, therefore not being very effective.
Yes, I can remember I worked for one of the organisations I worked for. There's always deadlines involved in it, and it's amazing how much more productive you can be if you get up away from your desk, go outside and just breathe deeply, take that 5-minute break, whereas the mind is telling you need to keep on going, get the work done. But there comes a time when you burn yourself out, hey?
Yeah. Most of us get to a point where you feel you hit the wall, like either using your brain or working with others. And it's useful to know ourselves, to know how long before that happens, and before that happens, do something, what you were saying, stand up, go outside, walk around, stretch, any of those, because sometimes it's difficult, because if you work on the 19th floor of a building, it would take you a long time to go out, and you might not want to breathe in the fumes when you leave the building. There are other ways you could sort of assist yourself with a few stretches, some belly breathing, etc. So these are all very good strategies.
And how open have the people been in organizations? If, you know, when you're doing your debriefing and things, is there a time when you bring that kind of thing in, if you see a lot of stress?
Stress is everywhere. It's more how the organization and the individuals respond to it. The same, and that's what amazes me every day. The same event or the same situation can get somebody worked up to the nth degree, but others, they just sort of, oh yeah, you know, and keep going and feel okay with that. I think the magic to it is to create a culture, create an environment where people feel okay to disclose that they are stressed, disclose that they are not coping well. Therefore, they get different assistance, whatever that is. And that could be breathing, that could be having an occupational therapist, a gym membership, you know, whatever they need. Sometimes it's physical. Sometimes, you know, people need to lose a little bit of weight, stop smoking, these sort of things, which organizations can assist with, either with time or resources, and it's very successful.
Because it's also about, there's a big thing about, for me, about being productive. And when you're working for somewhere, you know, a measure of what you're contributing is based on how productive you are. And so long as you look busy, then a lot of people do that, but it's about how effective you are. And it's really saying, I can be more productive when I have some flowers on my desk. You know, it's about improving your environment or whatever. And as you say, actually having the confidence to come forward and actually asking for the help, because that's a biggie, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of people are uncertain how to ask, and I always sort of say, hey, you know, if you don't ask, you don't get given. I mean, people cannot read your mind, and you might ask, and what's the worst thing could happen? They might say no.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you are exactly the same as before you asked. You don't have it, so well, you know, you just try, and again. I always wonder, okay, I asked for, I'm making this up, I never smoked in my life, but if I had, let's say I asked for patches to help me stop smoking. Well, the organization might say, no, we won't be able to do that. Okay, then you go back to the drawing board and think, okay, what else would help me to stop smoking? And come up with something like, having a walk in the middle of the day to get the oxygen going. So have a little bit of extra time, like 5 or 10 minute extra time for lunch, what you could make up in the afternoon or in the morning or whatever. So there's always other things you could sort of think and negotiate in the workplace, or negotiate with yourself, because that's where you start.
Yeah, but I think it's like a lot of the interviews I had, it's really about the support, isn't it? And it's not about, we're not born to live our lives on our own. We're actually sentient beings who need other beings around us to help us be alive. And having that support and understanding is so, so important. And there is no shame in putting your hand up and asking for help.
Yeah. I think it shows a certain level of strength and quite a level of self-knowledge to say, this is something which I like, please.
Yeah.
And of course, everything has its place and ways to do so. But yeah, I think it's a must.
And I think nowadays, because therapy per se and counselling, I know for some reason I have a thing against the word counselling, because it kind of says you're telling somebody what to do. So for myself, I prefer to call myself a mentor or facilitator, because I have a basket of knowledge that I've acquired that has helped me. And obviously I have my professional qualifications like yourself as well. I don't have all the answers all I can do is to share my knowing, my understanding with you. And actually my purpose is to help you understand yourself. Here's some tools. And there's no shame in therapy anymore. It's not about putting yourself right because there's something wrong with you. Well, there is, but it's common. Everybody, you know, when they talk about mental health, everybody has mental health issues as far as I'm concerned, but there's a lot more extreme cases of it, you know? And the way to alleviate that is to share it. And if you don't have somebody close to you to do it, is actually to find a professional that can help you, or find a support line or something. But for God's sake, don't suffer on your own, eh?
Yeah. I always sort of think that some people think that therapy is like you going to learn how to make one dish and these are the ingredients and you have to follow the ingredients and exactly the same measurement for everybody. No, everybody likes different foods, different flavors, different ingredients, different so we need to sort of work out who, what, where, how, and then create a menu for that individual for their lives. And that way it is for the person and with the person.
Yes. To be the person that they were born to be. Absolutely, most definitely. So going back to a question earlier, have you had, apart from sort of the divorces and raising children, was there any major issue major problem in your life that you had that was a challenge to you that you can look back on and think, oh, that was a stepping stone for where I am today? It's like the inner light that you can see now that helped you to get to where you are.
I guess coming from Hungary and getting to New Zealand and not being acknowledged for the experience, the expertise, the qualifications I brought with me.
Right.
Therefore, I had to retrain here, which on one hand was a pain, but on the other hand, it was a major advantage because I could, as a more mature student, truly take on board what we were learning and why we were learning, as well as use the process, the networking, for my own benefit, and not wasting time on things which were irrelevant or not important for my life. But being a single parent and working and doing my master's was not easy, I have to say. It was not much sleeping and yeah.
So what kept you going? What was your motivation?
I just so wanted to do what I'm doing now.
Why?
Because I enjoy working with people, and I knew that having the qualifications will make my journey easier, because I could see a number of people hitting the glass ceiling, not having the qualifications or the right qualifications. And yeah, I just could see that path, and I just wanted to get to a clearing in that path from, you know, that wooded area where I could just fly and do the things I enjoy and I know I'm good at. But sometimes you just have to have that piece of paper.
Yeah, and particularly having come from a foreign country, you know, it's like other people seeing the value in who you are and accepting you. It's just another thing, basically. But, you know, it was interesting what you're saying, because you enjoyed it. And that's, for me, that is what the on purpose part is. You're doing it consciously. You're making a conscious choice to do it because it lights your fire up.
Yeah.
And so why do you continue doing it? What other joy has it brought you over the years?
Understanding people better, meeting the most incredible people, such a variety of individuals.
Yeah.
While I work with others, through that, I learn more about myself every day, or what I like doing, what I don't like doing, what issues I like dealing with, what I don't. And of course, keep learning, because every day I read, every day I increase my knowledge, even just a tiny little bit about something, to make sure that I am the therapist, I am the consultant, I am the teacher who can pass and add value to other people's lives.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. You're adding value to their life and helping them see the value in themselves. Yeah, definitely. And see, your whole face lit up when you were talking there. That's lovely. A woman after my own heart. And this is like, I've usually got so many tabs open on my computer. Oh, that looks interesting. Oh, that looks interesting. And it's like, distraction, focus.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. So what advice would you give to your childhood self now, knowing what you know now?
I would say to her not to worry too much. I would say to her, try not to be a perfectionist. Enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Enjoy the learning, even in those tricky moments, because more will come. More learning, more difficulties, but just one day at a time, and it unfolds.
Yeah. I think there's a common message coming through is trusting in that process and enjoying the pain on the journey to the pleasure, and that pleasure is getting to know yourself and giving yourself a sense of pleasure and enjoyment in doing, and that's the reason that you're alive, really, isn't it? Yeah.
And I guess it's good to have a plan of what you want to do, how you want to do it, but don't stick to it too much that it becomes painful. Like sometimes a detour can be both useful and or pleasurable, rather than sticking to that, I need to do A, B, C, D in that order. Because sometimes that side trip can give you amazing experience and knowledge, which you might not see straight away, but maybe in 10 years' time, or in not the next job, but the job after, it's like, wow, I remember when I did blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's very useful now for me.
Absolutely. And not setting yourself in stone,
Yeah.
Absolutely. The rigidity, and that's the beauty. And I always take it back to nature. If you've established your roots, you really understand yourself and what your own needs are, and that helps the trunk grow strong and the branches and help you blossom, but it also helps you go with the flow of the changes of the environment. Your head's going with me when I go.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because when you've got something rigid, when the wind blows, it blows it over. But when you've got that flexibility, it moves. Yeah. Therefore, it stays rooted, it stays stable.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. So it's about connecting to yourself. So and I thank you so much for your time today. It's been some invaluable gems, and looking forward to sharing it with everybody. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.
Thank you very much, Philippa. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.